Hey everybody, today we're going to be taking a look at the Toshi 5-liter sling. Now, there's been a lot of talk about this bag on the internet, and for good reason. I think this is a really great bag that can be customized in a lot of different ways to fit what you need from a sling. The other reason there's so much talk about this is Rework themselves, the creator of this bag. They've gone on podcasts and they've gone on forums, wherever they can, to really talk about why they made some of the decisions that they did. And I actually agree with a lot of the decisions that they made with this bag, but there is some room for improvement and we will talk about that. So I'm going to come at this a little bit differently. I'm coming at this from the standpoint of a photographer and videographer. So can this be an EDC bag? Can it be a dedicated camera bag, even though it's not meant for that? You know, can it be a tech pouch? Can it be just like your one go-to bag? And I think the answer, just spoiler right from the get-go, I'm going to tell you that yes, it can, but with some caveats if you're willing to work with this bag a little bit. So what I'm going to do is do an overview of the bag, and then we will start talking about how it is to actually use it day to day, and I have used it quite a bit, and then do some loadouts and some final thoughts. So let's get into it. On the top here, we do have one big open pocket, no organization inside of there. And then you have this front flap covering another big open pocket, no organization in here, although you do get a key leash, and there is a loop where I can take this key leash off and locate it to a different spot. Now the bottom is where it gets a little interesting. On the bottom you have this magnetic flap here, and that is made to stow the compression straps. Now I will say that getting these compression straps on and off can be a little fiddly sometimes, because they are not being held in by a clip. They're more being held in by tension, and just kind of like slipping it into just the right spot. I really wish they would have made this just a clip instead of this system that they have here, because like I said, it can be a little fiddly getting these on and off. So I wouldn't say that this is like a quick thing to do. You know, if you're in a hurry, that's really what this is for, is to get things in and out really quickly. But I think for the most part, you kind of need to decide if you're going to use these compression straps for the day or not. You know, it's definitely not a like, okay, I'm done with these, let me take it off and tuck it away. Getting this on and off is just a little bit too difficult for something like that. So for a version 2, I would love to see Rework just put like a small clip or some other system where this can just be taken on and off really fast. And this is like a roughly rolled up zip up hoodie, and it can accommodate it. And I absolutely appreciate having the ability to do this. There are not many bags in this size that can do something like this, but something that I hardly ever see people mention is you are compromising, you know, by having something on the bottom. You know, I can now no longer like set it down. So if I'm at a restaurant or something like that, you know, I've got to just set it down flat, or, you know, maybe I just need to like hang it up by the strap. But in terms of like having convenience to store away, you know, light jackets, light sweaters, you know, I think that's absolutely fantastic. And I would much prefer to have the feature than not. So on the back, we do have one big open pocket here and no organization in there. And then we get into the main compartment. Main compartment, there's no organization here, but we do have four mesh pockets here, and then a sleeve for a tablet. Now, the reason why I say 4 mesh pockets is this is kind of an interesting setup that I haven't really seen, but you have one big pocket that goes all the way down to the bottom of the bag, but then you have a second pocket that only goes down about halfway. So what this allows you to do is it allows you to put things right on top of each other without them like competing for the same space inside of the bag. And I'll show you that in a little bit. And then last thing I'll mention is you do have some straps here on the side, like an anchor point where you can put a carabiner. This does also kind of act as like a grab handle, but you can really only put 2 fingers in here. Now, speaking of grab handles, I don't know if you've noticed, but I do have a handle here at the top. And this is not made with the bag. This is actually a custom strap that, I just ordered some seatbelt material off of Amazon, and then these little gator clips, and, just cut it off, sewed it together, and there you go. You now have a handle. That is one major thing that I wish that they had included with this bag is some type of top handle. Especially with a bag this size, you set this down in a car or at a restaurant or something like that, it's just nice to be able to just grab it and go. So for me, this is just really nice to have a handle here to grab onto. Now, speaking of the material that I used on here, the material that they have on the straps is not the greatest material. I'm pretty sure other reviews have mentioned this as well. This is a pretty, a little rough, any kind of like student standard backpack, that kind of material. If you're wearing thick clothing, it's not that big of a deal. But for me, whenever I was wearing something a little bit lighter, this edge especially like really started to dig into my neck, and it did not feel great to have that material digging into my neck. So I have actually replaced this strap with another strap that I have. And that is kind of the nice thing, that you can remove this. So this material here does continue out through the loops and the little side handle there, and also the compression straps on the bottom. So as far as the strap itself, it is comfortable, and you can adjust it quite a bit to whatever you would need it to be. But I feel like for a version 2, they should really improve this and go with a more seatbelt style material, which is what I went with for my little custom handle. Okay, so let's talk about some loadouts here. Let's answer the first question of, how does this work as like an EDC bag? Just camera and take a couple of things with you. So we've got the X106, and that goes in there, no problem at all. And, maybe I'm gonna go do some street photography, and I'm gonna get to a cafe and do some photos. So here's where that double layer mesh pocket comes in handy. You can see that the earbuds are just kind of sitting right above the camera. And what's cool about that is, if I put it into the main bigger compartment, the earbuds and the camera are now kind of competing for that same space. It's not that big of a deal, but I just appreciate that little bit of OCD where you just want things to each have their own place. So again, really appreciate that from the creators. Now, when I get there and I'm going to be working inside the cafe, I'm probably going to want to take out my sunglasses. And this pocket here, and let me give you some measurements for this pocket. 6.5 inches, maybe 3.5 inches tall. And then it does expand into the main compartment a little bit. So this isn't just big enough to accommodate sunglasses. This is big enough to accommodate the entire sunglasses case. Fits in there, no problem at all. Now, when I get to this cafe, I'm gonna want to work on my iPad mini, and that fits in there, no problem. But any tablet, I would say 9.5, 9.75. And then as far as height, 8.5 inches in height should be able to fit in there, no problem at all. And I'm gonna be out for quite a while, so I think I'm also gonna bring a really thin power bank, and of course, the cable. And then I forgot from earlier, I actually already have a wallet inside of here. That fits perfectly. And something I forgot to mention, there is actually a a little air tag pocket here just to give you that extra bit of security. So there you go. You've got a pretty compact setup where you have a small camera and then a few items with you. So let's say that you don't feel entirely comfortable with things floating around in here, or maybe you've got like an APS-C camera and a couple of lenses. You know, what do you do in that scenario? So I looked far and wide for some kind of insert to go in here, but I couldn't really find anything that would fit comfortably. So what I ended up doing was grabbing some dividers from an older bag and kind of forming them into this shape here. And then I can fit that straight into here. So at first glance, you know, the interior material, which is like this ripstop nylon, and I love that it's this light gray color so you can see things a little bit better. At first glance, you might think like, oh, well, I can't put any dividers inside because there's nothing for the dividers to stick to. But I've seen these kinds of things on Amazon where, you know, they have like the really long walls that can kind of wrap around a little bit. You know, you get any kind of dividers like that. And again, you know, we're looking at like 10 and a half inches. If you can get something in that size range, then here you go. You now have a dedicated camera bag. And just for a moment, you know, let's pretend that this is like an A6700. And I want to bring a couple of lenses with me. So here's like a couple of prime lenses. And now I've got a fully dedicated camera setup for a bag that isn't necessarily meant to be that, but it can absolutely work for that scenario. I've even still got like the mesh pockets back here, so I can put batteries, cables, you know, power bank. If I wanted to bring the iPad with me in that scenario, I still absolutely can. Now, I will say that because we're now dealing with like a really rigid, thick bag here, it does compromise the comfort level of this a little bit. So I don't know that I would want to take the bag fully packed out like this for an entire day. You know, but if this was my only bag and I just needed one bag to be an EDC, one bag to be a camera bag, you know, if I'm just taking this out for a portrait shoot, something like that for a couple of hours, like absolutely, I think it can do that beautifully. Okay, so I want to talk about two more carry scenarios here. Like maybe this is also like a travel bag for you, you know, maybe taking on a flight or something like that. So again, I definitely want the iPad mini, and for sure I want my power bank and a charging cable. I'm gonna need my wallet, and you know, maybe like a passport can also go back here. And I absolutely need my earbuds with me. And I like to have my camera with me, so I'm gonna take that as well. And I'm gonna need some additional entertainment. You know, this is a really long flight. So how about a Switch light? Boom, no problem at all. And you should be able to fit a regular Switch in here. You know, we're talking 9.5, maybe 10 inches, really pushing it. And then this way, you know, 6, maybe 5.5 inches. But Switch light fits in that front pocket really well. And there we go. Still like really compact setup here. All right, so let's talk about one more scenario here. Maybe you are interested in using this as a text sling. I had a viewer bring that up, and I think you absolutely can do that. I'm just gonna take some things out. The only thing about using this as like a tech desk caddy is because this does collapse, you know, there's no structure down here. If you're gonna set it down, you do kind of need to spread it out a little bit. This front flap, you know, there's no magnets or anything to hold it down. So you do need to kind of fold it down, and then it is there waiting for you. And in terms of what you have, again, you do just have like these mesh pockets here and then this back pocket. So I think if you are intending to use that as a tech caddy, I think you would really benefit from having like another smaller tech pouch. And this is a little bit on the bigger side for a bag like this. This is the PG&Y tech pouch, but I mean, that can sit in there. All right, let me just open this back up. You know, that can sit in there just fine. I do also have like another slimmer pouch. This is from a Moment tech pouch, and you know, that can go like into the back. So suddenly, like, you can fit a ton of stuff into this bag. You know, cables and earbuds, batteries, anything that you might need. And this would actually work well for a videographer as well. You know, maybe I don't have the big tech pouch, but I've just got like this smaller tech pouch here, and then camera equipment up front. So again, like, there's so much flexibility with this bag. You can kind of make it and form it to be whatever you want, but just know that you do have to do a little bit of extra work to find pouches and dividers and things that can fit into here. Let me talk briefly about just like comfort of wearing this, because I was a little concerned about this camera being inside of a bag with no structure. You know, you're taking this thing on and off, it's going around your back, it's going around your front. You can see like that camera did not move anywhere. The reason for that is because this is so flexible, it tends to just kind of wrap around like whatever you have inside of there. And then the bag itself, wearing it, it tends to like curve into your body and really just conforms itself to wherever it's been placed. So I found it really, really comfortable to wear for extended periods of time. You know, there was even portions of the day where I forgot that I had it on. Now, as far as like where you're going to wear this, you know, on your chest or on your back, I do think it works a little bit better on your back. But this can work around your front as well pretty easily. And again, that really just comes down to because of the flexibility of it. So that doesn't only work in favor for comfort, it works in favor of any devices that you have in here, because that wrapping around effect is also going to happen to devices inside of here and just kind of keeps them in place. Okay, so just to wrap up and talk about my final thoughts on this bag and who I think it's for. You know, the beauty of this bag, as I've mentioned multiple times, is really just the flexibility to make this bag what you want it to be. You know, it can be a light, just EDC bag. I think it is just the right size to be able to carry with you, where you're only carrying a few items, maybe a small camera, wallet, power bank. And then just because of how light this is and how flexible it is, and it ends up being really comfortable when you have less things inside of it. And then you can just expand this out and put tech pouches in here or other little dividers and just fill it to the brim with things. Again, because you've got that flexibility, you can pack tons of stuff in here. And then the flexibility of having some compression straps to put a tripod or a jacket. So again, you can use this as like an EDC sling. You can use it as a camera bag. You can use it as a desk caddy. There's just so many different ways that you can use this bag. Like I said before, it just takes a little bit of extra work to get it there. Now, as I mentioned, you know, if for some reason Rework is watching this, I do wish that the strap material was a little bit better. And I kind of wish that there was a first party like accessories area on their store where I could buy an extra strap, buy some kind of like tailor-made insert for this, buy some kind of like smaller little tech divider pouch. I think that would be really, really cool to have a first party solution to some of these things, rather than having to like go to Amazon or Best Buy or Adorama, you know, just like trying to find things that work for you. So that would be nice to have that. You know, maybe some other things I might want to change is like possibly a small divider in there. Yeah, that's more of a personal preference thing, because once a bag manufacturer starts putting pockets, you know, then they've kind of put their stamp on what they think the area of the bag is for. But giving us some first party pouches might be the answer to that. Okay, so that has been my review of the Toshi 5-liter sling. If this review has been helpful to you, subscribe, leave a like or a comment down below. All right, thanks. I'll see you in the next one.